Good evening. Good evening, Swati. Good evening, Swamjit.
Good evening, sir.
Good evening. किसकी क्लास चल रही थी? साहू सर. साहू सर's class was there. Mm, dual degree.
Dual degree.
Student class. अच्छा. And
And
Jayanto sir is taking class, I think. Good evening, everyone. Come, come. You're most welcome. तुम लोगों को प्रोजेक्ट अलॉटमेंट का नोटिस आया क्या? हु इज अलॉटेड टू योर प्रोजेक्ट?
Not yet.
नॉट येट. अच्छा. आई थिंक डिसीजंस आर डन. आई थिंक थोड़े एक आई थिंक आज या कल में शायद एचओडी विल फॉरवर्ड. कहाँ ये सब के सब? Oh, allotment is done on the basis of your CGPAs and the algorithm that the choices that you gave, your CGPA, the availability of faculty, and there is an algorithm in the NITRIS system. So basically, it divides lower and upper CGPAs accordingly to whatever available slots are there with the teachers. So something on those lines, that equal distribution from the lower half of the CGPAs and the upper half of the CGPAs is done between the, and then choices that you all gave. Those are given priority, so that is also done. Just hold on a sec, guys. Sorry. Yeah, so that's the criteria, Swamjit.
Sir, is the project allotment for the dual degree students is for both the pre-final year as well as the final year, or we'll get a different project in a final year too?
From what I understand, the project will be same in both the years because these will be large projects. So you are in ninth sem and you will have like uh, three sems basically to work it out, right? Oh, sorry, two sems, this and next, right?
Sir, we are currently in the seventh semester.
You are in seventh sem, so you will have 3 semesters.
Yeah, three more.
So I think it will be same because allotment is done based on the year-wise list. So if would have been the case, then last year students would also have been in allotment list. So they were not. So I think the same project for you guys.
Thank you, sir.
गुड इवनिंग गाइस, गुड इवनिंग। जल्दी बुलाओ सब लोगों को। कहाँ रह गए ये लोग? जयंत तो सर ज़्यादा लंबी क्लास ले रहे हैं लगता है। ओके, राइट, ओके। So I think we can start now. How many of us are here? Yeah, 34. Okay, it's already time. So good evening, students, and thank you again for coming. Uh, we'll be continuing our discussion on the principles of slope stability from the last class. So in the last class, we discussed something about what are the factors, what are the uh, ways in which we can judge the factor of safety, different criterias like oh sorry, and the different factors in which we can judge the stability of a slope. So different criterias were discussed. Factor of safety was one criteria. There was a criteria for critical strain. There was another criteria for probability analysis. So these criterias are for different applications and different scenarios, and based on what kind of threshold we keep on in each of them, we can decide based on those factors. So we were discussing about how we simply calculate factor of safety, and we took some examples also, right? Uh, we will be continuing that today, and we'll be looking into some more details. Last time, from what I understood, we rushed into one of the important example of the water or tensile case scenario. So today we will be also looking into those, and we'll be also looking into some bolting principle and how things work in bolts, and very conceptual aspect of that. And uh, then we will be seeing some problems and solving them. So be also ready with your, as usual, with pens, papers, calculators, etc. Okay, so yep, calculating factor of safety. We were discussing about this. So this we already discussed very quick. I think this was repeat. Yeah. So yeah. So I want to go through this again because I think we rushed last time. So this condition is when there are tensile cracks which develop over the top of the slope or the slope top. These tensile cracks generally appear with time because of the stresses that slope creates, and these cracks are basically indications that the slope is the weakening has started, the deterioration of the slope has started. Now, reason can be many. Reason can be there can be a fault plane that is causing these cracks to build up. There can be a sort of a toppling effect that is showing these tensile cracks. There can be a total movement of the slope also that can be indicated in form of cracks. So even those tensile cracks, the cracks that are formed on the top of the slope, these are very important. Now you are seeing this as a cross section that is two-dimensional cross section here. If you visualize in a three-dimensional, it's basically a sort of a crack running throughout the face of the slope. This in itself, it can be of very many conditions can be there that are inducing these cracks, but mostly and especially near the slopes, it's a high indication that there is certain sort of movement, not exactly a slope movement. There may be a local movement due to maybe some local soil failure below, or there can be a total movement, as in this case we are seeing there is some movement due to which tensile cracks are developed. Now, tensile cracks being indication of failure is one thing. Um, after development of tensile cracks, there are many other problems also that start developing in a slope. One example is this, that we are seeing that water starts to infiltrate. Now, water also water infiltration is also a continuous process in case when soil type of slopes are there. So if the material is soil or very porous, in that case water anyways will infiltrate when rainfall is there. Some sort of absorption, some sort of transfer will be there based on what kind of porous properties and conductivity, hydraulic conductivity is there of that soil. However, when rocks are there, generally rocks, the relative permeability with respect to other kinds of structures where slopes are there, like a dump slope or a waste slope. So in those cases, a rock slope is relatively very less conductive in terms of water. So water infiltrates at a very low rate or not infiltrates at all in these cases. However, when we start seeing cracks, so cracks basically give them a way to give the water away to get inside these, and that becomes doubly problem. Like we know that not only water is creating a smoothing of the surface of slide failure, because the sliding plane, whatever the infiltration or the infilling material is there, due to water, that also may change its properties and become less cohesive, or the friction can reduce. So that it's doing. Apart from that, it's also building up the hydrostatic pressure. So in this example, what we are seeing is the triangular sections that you are seeing. These are basically the hydrostatic head, representing the hydrostatic head or hydrostatic force that water is exerting on the planes and the block. So now, why do we see two triangles here? First triangle is very apparent, the upper one, because from the top portion we can consider it's the place where water can be saturated, because that's where the crack is, and that can be the line where water saturation can be assumed. However, this as you can see, this increase in head goes till a point where it joins the sliding plane. Now, sliding plane is basically a joint, right? And the joint characteristic is such that it can or cannot allow water to pass through it or flow through it. Now, based on uh, based on what kind of material inside it has, or what kind of roughness it has, or even overall what is the conductivity of water through that joint surface itself, that dictates whether a joint is called an open joint or a closed joint. So we'll come to that again. Just let's see what, for this problem, what we have. We have the area of sliding contact, that is A. So in this, the plane that is the sliding plane, that is A, the area. Weight of the block that we are assuming as W, right? Uh, Angle of slide again is psi p. Height of the tensile crack now is the HW. So height of the tensile crack from the plane of failure plane that we are assuming, the sliding plane, that is HW. Now be very careful where which dimensions are being talked about here. Many questions they don't give this HW. In place, what they give is that depth of the crack. So if we have the depth of the crack and we know what is the inclination of the slope, we can actually find out HW itself. So these kind of questions also come, but yeah, be careful what question demands. So now, for now, we are given HW, that is the height of the crack bottom from the sliding plane end. So sliding plane is this. Now here it says sliding joint is open at one end. Now open at one end, what does it mean? Especially, we have to understand what is the characteristic of joint in this case. Dotted line. Indrajit, dotted line actually represents the water level that forms when saturation is there. So, uh, as you might be aware, if there is no uh, if there is no cutting or no slope formation, the water level is generally present as a uh, layer of you can say a level certain at certain depth constantly throughout the surface, right? If the surface is plane, the depth of that water level will be constant or near about constant in many places, depends on other conditions as well, yes. But generally it remains in a planar non-disturbed area. It remains quite constant based on what kind of bedding plane and inside structures are there. However, when something like this, the cutting of like this slope has been made. So basically slope has been made. That means the water level here decreased suddenly on the cut side. So the water level which was maintained here, that basically dropped down and became almost zero at the cut face. So that's what is represented by this dotted line. Now, in this case, what is happening is the dotted line is representing what are the limits of our water saturation. So it has two ends. One end is in ending at a joint, right? And the other end that is connecting or very near to the uh, crack bottom. Now, why this is because uh, assuming that crack is not filled up with water and assuming the worst case scenario in the other direction, it is assumed that the water level is just below the crack bottom, and that indicates that whatever is below that, that is saturated. Secondly, why the water level decreases and becomes zero at this point, the joint point, that is because this sliding joint, as I said, is called an open end joint. Open end joint, basically what it does is it creates an opening for water to pass through. So joints, as I was saying, have different characteristics. Closed end joints are also there, which do not allow water to pass through. But if open end joints are there, they will at whatever rate is irrespective, but at certain amount of rate, or very slowly or gradually or maybe very fast as well, based on the type of joint it is there, it will allow some water to pass through. And that allowance, that characteristic of that joint, that water is able to pass through, that makes it a open-ended joint, and that makes the pressure, water pressure or water head at the end of the joint zero. Okay, because water is being allowed to pass through it. At any point where water is being allowed to pass through, there the hydrostatic head becomes zero. And that's the principle of basically drainage. When we do a drainage in a saturated slopes, or where water hydrostatic head is built up, that's what the purpose of drain is, to basically allow water to pass through. So as soon as we allow water to pass through, that point is basically representing a point of hydrostatic head equals to zero. So whatever hydrostatic head is height difference is there, that is the potential at which water will pass through. So these all studies, these are called hydrostatic or hydrological studies in that. And this also is a very important part when we do slope stabilization work, because idealistically, we can't assume that whole slope is saturated and whole slope is not saturated. So there will be water levels. These are called piezo lines sometimes, where the water level is being represented by some piezo lines. Some places it is called piezo line. Some places it is called water table. Some places different names are there, but representing what? That below this, the saturation is high or almost saturated, and above that there will be less saturation or no saturation, low saturation, not no saturation, but low saturation point. Okay, so that is the principle of drainage, that at any point where water is being allowed to pass through, that point becomes the point of zero pressure. And now you can understand why this force, hydrostatic force that is represented here by U, is giving uh, a triangular distribution rather than a increasing distribution that it could have been because of a total height of the saturation. So that's why it happened. In case closed joint will be there, this head will actually keep on increasing at the same rate. So as with height, this was increasing in case of V. Similarly with height, as we go down, this will also be increasing in case the joint is closed. So we have to get an idea what the situation is. Does that answer your question, Indrajit? Understood? Yeah. Okay. So moving on. So now we understand how these hydrostatic forces or hydrostatic pressures will work. Now we have to calculate what these are and how now factor of safety can be calculated in this. Now we understand, okay, apart from weight, apart from friction, apart from cohesion, now certain other forces are also acting in this, which are basically affecting the slope stabilization. What are those forces? And the hydrostatic head or the hydrostatic forces in both of these direction, on the slope, sliding surface, as well as on the vertical surface, which we see above the sliding face till the tensile crack. So let's and getting this idea, we have to first find out how much is that hydrostatic head or hydrostatic force. Now, so calculating water forces, triangle, since we are seeing it is in triangular fashion, so V will be V is the force. So V will be half, because it is in a triangle section, into the pressure that is built up. Pressure is what? Rho into G into H, right? And multiplied by the area of contact, because we have to basically convert it into force. So that is how this formula came up. If we talk about V, so rho G HW is the head of water, that it becomes the maximum head. Half we are giving because we are not taking a total head because of the triangular distribution we talked about. And HW is the area of contact, assuming 1 meter width or unit dimension width of this 2-dimension figure. Okay, so V comes about half rho GHW square. In this case, again, similarly, we find out U. U is again rho GHW, because that's the maximum head. On the other end, it is 0. So the triangle base and height, so half base into height that way. So the pressure rho GHW, again, A is the area of contact as we were given, and half is again there. So now we know what are U and V, right? Now it becomes simple. We have to basically find out the forces that are sliding, that are inducing the slide in the direction of the slope, in the direction of the sliding phase. And we are basically have to find out what are the forces that are resisting the slide. So resisting the slide will be some forces that are basically giving normal reaction so that the friction can increase. So just let's start with the calculations, calculating the driving forces. So driving forces becomes W sin xi plus V cos xi. So V ka component on the sliding phase side. So that becomes V cos xi, right? And resisting forces, one is cohesion, that is C into A, and the other is friction, that is W cos xi, that was the component of weight that is giving us the normal reaction, right? Now U becomes in the negative direction because U is basically pushing it away. So W cos xi was the weight, so it was towards the space, assuming that as positive, minus U, and weak component on the upside, because this is the direction. So this v cos xi in the direction of the slide, and v sin xi opposite to the direction of the slip, direction perpendicular to the direction of plane. So that's why w cos xi minus u minus v sin xi tan phi, that tan so that is the total friction. And so combining these two forces, so the total resisting forces become cohesion into A plus this friction part. Now it becomes simple, right? Now we can just put it into factor of safety equation, summation of resistive forces upon summation of driving forces, and that's the final equation we come up with. Now, a good thing about understanding this is basically we can resolve any forces in the direction and perpendicular direction of the sliding phase, so that we can actually get what are the resisting forces and what are the forces that are opposing or acting towards the normal reaction. In these simple idealistic scenarios, basically these are the two forces which we have to find out. The total resisting force, that will be a combination of cohesion and friction, and the total driving force, that will be a function of weight or any other forces that are applicable, like here it is was the hydrostatic pressure or hydrostatic head. So so this was for this kind of problem. Now, please understand this also, that in ideal conditions, when we assume that this whole mass is a solid mass that won't break up, it doesn't absorb anything, its weight doesn't increases, its density is overall same. So many assumptions are being made when we are idealizing this problem, because these kind of scenarios practically we may not be getting. So what happens is, we in practical scenarios, many other assumptions are also made and various other adjustments are done. In those cases, we also assume that the hydrostatic pressure is basically building up after the leakages, and we also can assume that this whole block is not a single block, but some of many blocks. So in that case, we can also basically divide it into tiny slices and do that kind of a study, and that is all done in what we when we will see the limit equilibrium analysis by the slide software that will be seen. So I'll be keeping both this software in both of these classes here, and CAM, so that we can understand both aspects of it, the working aspect here as well as the design aspect and the computational aspect there. So that will be fun when we reach there. Let's move ahead. What happens when we put a tensile bolt? Now, tensile bolt is basically doing the opposite work of what the water was doing. Water was basically pushing the block away. Tensile bolt, or the bolt that is anchored, or bolting, or the grouting that is done in that, basically holds the block there, holds the rock there, and prevents it from sliding. How it does that is basically it increases the normal reaction that holds the block. This normal reaction is included in force side, friction side, and that basically stops the block from sliding. Sometimes if the angle of bolt is adjusted such that it not only increases the friction, but it also increases the decreases the resisting the sliding forces. So in this case, now we are seeing that it is almost perpendicular. So let's see what we have for this. We have area of sliding contact, that is again a W xi p, and now we have a tension on bolt as T. So T is the force or the tension that is exerted by this bolt. Uh, T can have units of force, because tension uh, and this tension and extension. These are units of basically force. How much tension is there on a block, or how much tension is there on a unit body, that can be measured in newtons and all. I think these things you might have done in your first year also, right? Mechanics. So similar concepts. So and we are given that bolt angle with respect to plane. Be very sure with respect to what? With respect to horizontal, with respect to plane, with respect to the slope surface. So many angles can be given. So we have to know which angle are we talking about. So now the bolt angle is given with respect to plane is 90 degrees, right? So now what we are seeing is that this bolt will basically be affecting only the normal reaction part of it. So sigma dash that we talk about, right? So that is the normal reaction component. So tau will the tension will be basically holding that, giving more tension in the direction of perpendicular direction of the plane, and that will increase the normal reaction. Normal reaction increase means the friction increases, and friction increases basically means the resisting forces increases. In case the bolt's angle was at some inclination towards the face, maybe not 90 degree, but maybe 30 or 40 degrees. So not only would it had given the normal reaction, uh, but also it would have provided some resisting force in the opposite direction of the weight component of the slide. So let's first solve this and then discuss how these bolts are, how they behave and all. So calculating driving force, very simple. Fd equals to W sines I. There is no other force that is basically inducing the slow failure. And resisting forces comprise of the component of weight as well as the tension. Since it is at 90 degree, basically all the full tension is without any component directly goes to the normal reaction, and that coupled up with the tan phi thing, it gives us the total friction. Simple calculations, simple factor of safety, right? That's the whole point why tensile bolts are used, to basically hold that up and increase the factor of safety. Now, now I want you guys to do some calculations on your own. So be ready with your pen and pads. This will be sort of a small derivation. Okay. So now you have seen how these factor of safeties are taken out. So basically we calculate driving force, we calculate resisting force, and we find their ratio as factor of safety. Now what you have to do is, in next case, now next case combines both of these scenarios. The UV scenario where we had a hydrostatic head, and we have a tensile bolt, basically that is inclined right now at an angle of xi t with respect to horizontal. Okay, so be very careful now what we are talking about. It's inclined at xi t with respect to horizontal. Area of sliding is A again, weight is given W, angle of slide is xi p, tension on bolt is T, bolt angle with respect to horizontal xi t, and height of as was in previous case HW. Sliding joint is open at one end again, so same scenario. Now it's your work to calculate factor of safety, and you have like, how much time should I give you? 3 minutes. 3 minutes. Okay. Now it's 3:50. I will wait till 3:53, and you can raise your hands when you are ready with your answers. So let's see who comes up. It's very simple. It's it will be similar to the exercise we were doing from last 2 times. We have to calculate the resisting forces, we have to calculate the driving forces, and we have to basically find the ratio. I mean, I have given you most of the things. You just have to go do some very basic geometry, geometrical exercise or trigonometric exercise, and find out what is the factor of safety. Be very careful of the signs which you are putting. Okay. So where the tension acts, in which direction for the bolt, and which component will it be basically helping out. Okay. Rohan Kumar Patnaik. Yes, please, Rohan, tell me what answer did you find?
So the factor of safety is, am I audible, sir? Hello?
Yeah. You're perfectly audible.
The factor of safety is, as the expression goes, the cohesion force C into A plus
Right.
W cos psi P plus T cos xi T minus U minus V sin xi P whole multiplied with tan phi divided by W sin xi P plus V cos xi P.
What is the bottom denominator?
So the denominator is W sin xi P plus V cos xi P.
And where is the T component there? Right. Yeah. Correct again. So there will be a T component on both sides because now it is inclined. Right?
Yes, sir.
Yeah.
So it's minus T cos xi T.
Yeah, correct. Xi T.
Yes, sir. Xi T.
Nah. There is not just xi T. See, if you do xi T, the direction in which you are resolving is basically in horizontal direction and vertical direction, right?
Yes, sir.
See, xi T is bolt angle with respect to horizontal. So if you do T cos xi T, you are resolving the T in terms of horizontal and vertical, X and Y direction. That won't work because what we want is from the towards the slope and perpendicular to the slope, right? The sliding plane. So the angles have to be taken care. Now this will be something on the combination of xi P and xi T. So on both sides, in the above as well as below. So that resolution you have to take care. Anyone else? Yes, Deepti, what you got?
Sir, the numerator will be CA W cos xi P plus T cos xi P minus xi T minus U minus V cos xi P.
Sorry, I missed. Just kindly repeat once more. Yeah.
Yes, sir. Sir, CA plus W cos xi P plus T cos xi P minus xi T.
No. No. Check again. Check again. Oh, so many hands. Okay, sorry. Adarsh, yes.
Hello, sir.
Yeah, Adarsh.
Sir, the numerator will be CA plus
Mhm.
W cos xi P plus T cos 90 minus xi P minus xi T.
No. Acha, okay. T cos.
T cos 90 minus xi P minus xi T. That is in bracket.
So what is cos 90 minus theta?
Sir, minus sin theta.
So convert that. Bring me a
Sir,
final equation.
cos.
Bring me a final equation. Don't go 90s, okay?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Yeah. Neeraj, yes. Neeraj Kumar.
Yes, sir. T times A plus T sin xi t plus xi t minus U plus V plus W sin xi p divided by W sin phi plus U plus V cos xi p minus T cos xi t plus xi p.
Nah. Too many T's. There will be only two T's where you were talking about. Check again. Okay.
Okay,
Swati, what
sir.
did you get?
Sir, the resisting force would be W cos Ca plus W cos xi p minus U
Right.
minus V sin xi p plus
Right.
T sin xi p minus xi t divided by W sin xi p plus V cos xi p minus T cos xi p minus xi t.
Check again. Xi t minus xi p is not correct. Otherwise, all things are okay.
Sir, I said xi
Uh,
p minus xi t.
yeah, that is not correct. Check again. Okay. Uh, who else? Who else is there? Jagdish.
Resisting force is Ca plus
No, Jagdish.
tan
Jagdish,
in
your
bracket.
voice
Yes,
is
sir.
फिर से बोलो. It's all cut.
Okay, sir. Sir, the resisting force.
Now it's good.
Sir, it's Ca plus in within the bracket T sin xi t plus xi p plus
Okay.
W cos xi p minus U minus V sin xi p whole multiplied to tan phi.
Okay. Right.
Divided by
Okay.
the FD, which is W sin xi p plus V cos xi p plus T cos
Yes.
xi t plus xi p
What is that? What is that last term?
plus T cos xi t plus xi p.
Oh, so close. Oh, so close. Just a small mistake.
Not
Very
plus, it's
small mistake.
multiplication.
Almost close.
T sin xi t into sin xi p.
No. No.
Sir?
No.
Hello, sir.
He was so close. He was so close. Jagdish was very close. Okay. Who is next?
Last term will be minus T
Sir, I
cos
converted
90
the
plus
switch.
हाँ कोई तो बोल दिया
Hello?
सही जवाब वैसे. Someone has told. Akshat is there? Akshat told?
Yes, sir. So T cos
Ah, what is
xi
that?
p plus it. It will be
It will be
T minus T cos xi p plus it.
okay. So what is the full function?
The driving force will be W sin xi p plus V cos xi p minus T cos xi p plus it, and the
Perfect.
resisting force will be Ca plus bracket W cos xi p minus U minus V sin xi p plus T sin xi p plus it whole into tan phi xi p. Sorry.
Awesome. That's the correct answer. I think I have also. Just a sec. I will make a few. 8 minutes. Hold on, guys. So that is the correct answer. Wait. Tac. Right. Okay, let me start presentation that way. It works. Doesn't work. Oh, sorry. Okay. Yep. So finally we got an answer. So the correct answer, guys, is this. You were very close, guys. But the very fundamental is which angles we are talking about, how we are resolving and taking care of, what is towards the resisting side and what is towards the uh, this forcing side. So Ca plus W cos psi p minus U minus V sin psi p. This was all fully similar to what we previously did, right? The only component that was added in both of these cases in this time was the T sine and T cos xi t plus xi p. Now, why xi t plus xi p? As initially we were making this assumption that just the cos and sine will be sufficient, cos xi t and sine xi t. Xi t is, again, be very careful what we are talking about, horizontal. The angle is with respect to horizontal, right? So when it is with respect to horizontal, in case we write cos xi t and sin xi t, it will basically become the horizontal and the vertical component. So what we have to do is we have to put it towards the slope and perpendicular to the slope, right? So basically it becomes, if we combine those two angles, with respect to horizontal, the plane is at xi p. With respect to the horizontal, the bolt is at xi t. The combined angle between the slope and the bolt is xi t plus xi p. Very simple in that case. Okay. So the cos component and the sine component basically will be dictating how the tension will be there or the supporting will be there. Now, what mistake almost we did at the last point was that we put the positive plus sign in there and the plus t cos xi t plus xi p. So why this confusion happens, and very obvious it is, because when we resolve it, it is very easy to assume that the forces will be in the direction of the bolt, right? But the actual what is happening is the bolt is basically pulling the rock towards it. So whatever the forces will be there, it will be in the direction towards the block, and towards the block means it will be basically resisting the movement and pushing the block inside. So in that case, we have to take the directions appropriately. Okay. Anyone has any doubt in this? Anyone didn't get clarified, or anyone had some answers that he's not able to understand why this is not correct? Anyone? Two guys have raised hands. It is from before or new? Jagdish, any doubt?
No,
Okay.
sir.
Okay. Okay, guys. If it is clear, we will move on. We have around 10 more minutes. So we'll do some exercises. Be again ready with your pens and papers. Okay. So now we will come to some numerical parts. Let's start with a simpler one. So, okay. Before that, let's not do numericals before we understand what the concepts are. So now we see how tensile bolts work. Tension basically, the tension that is stopping the failure. Basically, it gives a normal reaction as well as a reaction resisting the sliding. So that's the whole point behind the tensile, that the anchorage or the bolting concept. So when we do a bolting, it can be of different types, anchored, grouted, and so on. You might have already studied these kind of bolting in, if you have studied underground support practices, or some other in some other ways, what type of bolts are there, what type of bonding is there, pull out strength and all. I think you guys have been exposed to that part. But in case of open cast mining, or in case of slope stabilization, when we talk about bolting or anchoring, there are certain differences, and the differences are more in sort of scale and what extent to which we are bolting rather than conceptual. So concept is all same. Concept is basically that the bolt holds the rock and itself to the stable part. So that's the whole point. The bolt basically takes its tensile capacity, or the tension that builds up in the bolt basically takes from its anchorage to the stable part of the slope. And that stable part of the slope and the tension that builds up on that bolt basically supports that wedge that is about to fall, and that's why the factor of safety of that part increases. Okay. So the main support for all this kind is tension, or that way. Now, there can be a number of bolts, not just one, and generally it is, because just one bolt won't be mostly sufficient to basically give the required stability. And why is that? In case there is only one bolt, see now if we see it, in case if it is only one bolt and it has very high tensile capacity and it has very nice gripping of anchoring, so that it can basically give a lot of tension, it can hold ideally. But practically speaking, many things don't work. First of all, a very high tensile strength bolt may be possible to build, but it won't be gripping the soil or the stable rock mass to such an extent that that required amount of tension can be held by it. That is, it will itself start failing. Secondly, even the small bolts that are that do not have that kind of capability to hold such a large rock mass just by one bolt. Okay. And thirdly, this rock mass, we are assuming it as one block right now. In general, this is not the case. I mean, even though it may be behaving as single a single block, generally it can be divided into very many individual components or individual sizes. As we were saying, when we idealize this situation, we assume that as one block. But when we actually work in the field or when we see actual condition, it's broken down into so many pieces. And that's why we have to decide on how many number of bolts should be there, what should be the separation between each bolt. So sometimes we talk about the separation density or the bolting density. So in that sense, per meter square, how many bolts are applied on that slope, we have to know. In that way, we understand how much of the area is being given this much tensile tension, so that that amount of area can be basically held at that place. So these are there, numbers are there. What is the angles? Now angles, you have seen what is the effect of angles when if it is at 90 degree with the perpendicular to the failure surface, it's just acting on increasing the friction part of it. But if it is inclined at certain angle, it is also acting towards preventing the block from sliding. Now assume that what's happening in the perpendicular cases. Basically, we are increasing the normal reaction. Now assume there is all the normal reactions that have to be multiplied by the tan phi or the tan theta, which whatever we say is the friction constant. Okay. So when we have to multiply it by friction constant, that becomes a limiting factor, because if there is a very small friction constant, or practically speaking, what happened is somehow the sliding between these two joints is becoming very smooth. That may be due to many reasons. Maybe it is some sort of rock like that has cleavage planes. So when cleavage planes are there, they fail very quickly. And there can be more, like there was infilling material, now it is not there, so cohesion will also decrease, even sometimes friction also decrease. Any number of cases can be there. And in that case, when these kind of situations are there, even though later on while the block moves, the angle of the bolt can change to basically support it. But the initial, when bolting is done, it is seen that if the angle or the friction angle of that plane is very less, or it has a tendency to decrease, so the overall increase in the friction will be quite less as compared to if we put it at a lower inclination. So that way, the numerator part of it will also be affected by the tension. Oh, sorry, the denominator part of it will also be affected by the tension. So basically it will reduce the sliding forces. So as we were seeing in the last example, if we change the angle with respect to the angle, both of the numerator and the denominator in the factor of safety basically are affected. So while when we were talking about just the 90 degree part, so the that part becomes zero in terms of the numerator when denominator when it is 90 degrees. So in these cases, when friction is less or the tendency of sliding is high, the angle is also adjusted in some way that it balances out and maximizes the factor of safety. So that also, as engineers, we have to see at what angle the maximum factor of safety can be achieved. Okay. Separation, as I was saying, how much density of bolting it is there, and the tensile capacity, very important. So tensile capacity, as I was talking about the numbers, so the amount of tension that a block requires basically to be held in its place to achieve certain factor of safety. Maybe we want the whole factor of safety of this whole block or this whole slope to be more than 1.5, at least 1.5. So in case of 1.5, we may have to, in certain situations, find out how much bolting tension is required. In that sense, if we find out the tension by using these formulas available with us, we can find out how, if we know the ultimate capacity of bolt, how much tension it can take, we can ultimately find out how many bolts are required in that area, right? And because we are talking about a 1 meter depth, unit depth cross section, we can basically give an idea of how many bolting, how much bolting density is required, how much bolting should be done throughout the phase. And this is the whole principle behind the various consultancy works or various stabilization works that we do when we go for slope stabilization. We have to basically, as engineers, we have to find out what is the best way to stabilize. And these are the factors that how much of average friction or cohesion is there in these fault planes, or how much a tensile capacity bolt will hold, so that if I want to bring the factor of safety to this limit, how much bolting I need, what should be its separation, what should be its density, angles, and so on, its length. So sometimes length is also decided based on how much tensile capacity it requires. If the anchoring length is very small, the tensile capacity will be less because the pull-out strength will be less, because more area of gripping will give more tensile capacity to that bolt, right? So that also are the factors that's why we sometimes recommend a longer bolt or a shorter bolt in some scenarios. So that can be cases. So many cases are there, and when you actually do some sort of stabilization exercise, maybe just for example, when we do solve these examples and understand how these can actually be fitting in the field as well, and that's when we find out, okay, this is the way it can be stabilized. So this, the concept which I'm giving you right now, bolting concept, is very basic idea of how things work. There are many factors that are acting actually, and many factors will be basically affecting factor of safety. Even there are many techniques like there are geogridding, shotcreting, there are wire mesh that is built. So all this is basically what it is doing is basically increasing the resistive force or decreasing the sliding forces. That's how it can basically uh, stop the sliding or the failure of the slope. And in each case, when we see, okay, I want to stabilize this slope, and this is one of the method, bolting is one of the method, wire meshing is one of the method, shortcutting is one of the method. Every time as engineers, we have to decide, okay, what is its effect? Is it actually increasing the resistance towards sliding, resistance against sliding, or is it decreasing the total sliding force that is there? So all this, when we analyze, when we understand, and when we understand these concepts, we are able to think on those lines that, okay, factor of safety basically depends on these two conditions, resistive force and sliding forces. One of the two has to be affected, or at least both of those have to be affected in order to basically change the stabilization measures. So when we do practice these things, we will take care of that. Now, before I move on, do you guys have any questions till now? Any clarifications, any questions? Because time is up. Okay. Yeah. Any questions? No? Any things are well understood. It's, I think, if we know the principle, we can actually be confident in finding out, in idealistic scenarios at least, how the factor of safety will be affected by this. Okay. So we'll be doing some questions maybe tomorrow, and we'll be giving you some exercises. So we'll have some questions. We'll discuss those tomorrow. And uh, see, every time I try to give you an assignment, but don't reach that stage. And whatever assignment I want to give you, that becomes a class. So this all was an assignment. But anyways, uh, uh, okay. If and you guys don't have any questions, we'll close the class for today. We'll discuss the numericals tomorrow. And if time permits, we will move on to the next method, critical strain method, or we'll see what else we can. Okay, guys. I think some comments are there. What is okay? Which will provide? So Indrajit asks, which will provide more stabilization, anchored or grouted bolt? So anchored bolt, Indrajit, anchored can be many types. Anchoring can be many types. So anchoring even can be from the grouting part also. So when grouted anchor bolt, as grouting basically means that either some sort of cement grouting or chemical grouting, or maybe even biological grouting are done. So in any ways, basically we have to grip the bolt to the ground. Now that is the purpose of grouting. Anchoring means basically not fully grouting the bolt, but just anchoring the bolt or grouting the bolt at the end so that it holds at the stable portion of the slope. So if in this example, in this figure, we see if we have just the lower portion of these bolts grouted, that will create an anchorage force. Anchoring will be there, and that in that way we can basically stop the slope by basically put the tension by tightening the bolts and putting the plates on top. In case of fully grouted bolts, what happens is, apart from tension that is built up, grouting also helps in stabilization. So when fully grouted bolts are there, it basically is doing a double effect, not only just anchoring, but also pushing the bolts and preventing the strength of the block that holds the grout also increases. So that ways multiple aspects of grouting are available in that case. Sometimes even in these kind of planar failures, we put grouts in between the planes so that it basically becomes more stable through the bolting mechanism. So that those are the differences there. Grouting means holding it in some way. Fully grouted, I think you might have thought about fully grouted when you talk about grouting. So fully grouted basically does more than tensile. It also stabilizes the whole area. Generally, we do fully grouted holes when the destabilization is such that whole of the area is disturbed. There are many layers or seams that are there, and in that way we can maybe decide on what kind of bolting we want to do. Okay, does that answer your question, Indrajit?
Yes, sir. Thank you, sir.
Yeah. Okay, guys, thank you so much. You guys have been nice.
Sir, I have a question, sir.
Who is this, Rohan?
Rohan, sir.
Yeah, Rohan, tell me.
Sir, in that condition where water was seeping inside.
Uh-huh.
Sir, for the case where we have the open joint, means the joint is open at one end, there we have the distribution of the water head in the triangular form.
Right.
So does the same distribution form apply for the closed joint, or is there is any other kind of distribution for the closed joint form?
Yeah, so in closed joint, what will happen is this triangle will basically keep on continuing increasing. So in this case where the open joint was there, the triangle is pointed on both sides. There is one triangle on top, and
Yes,
the
sir.
bottom also is triangle. There, in the second case, if it is open, basically the head will keep on increasing with respect to the depth that we go down, right? Because rho GH, simple concept. Okay. So
Sir,
as soon
it's
as
a
we go
triangle.
down, basically, so the bottom triangle, so the top triangle will remain a triangle. That's okay. The bottom triangle
Yes,
will
sir.
basically start increasing in width from the top to bottom. And rather than being a triangle, it will become something like a trapezoid or something.
Parallelogram or trapezium.
Trapezium, something like that. Yeah. So that ways we calculate in that sense. So this exercise I will also put that if time permits tomorrow. We will see.
Yes.
Okay. Thank you guys. Thank you very much.
Thank you, sir.